Alyssa here from Southern Maryland Vegan Events, and for today's video I'm going to talk about the one thing that we all can't live without, and that is cheese, right? So National Cheese Day actually happens to be June 4th, and I thought it was the perfect time to actually talk about just that, and how truthfully, when it comes to anything that has to do with veganism, I think the number one thing I hear the most is in terms of it being too challenging or just confused or wondering where to start is it is going to be too difficult to give up cheese. And I fully get that, because I think every vegan has been in that spot, even if it's been for a minute or for a couple weeks or whatever the case, but we can definitely relate to that. And the reason for that, the reason that your body is saying, oh, I need to have that, I can't live without it, is actually legit, because dairy, all dairy from an animal, from a cow, includes a protein called casein. And what that does is it has the same chemical effect and reaction and breakdown on your brain as opioids, actually. So there is a reason why we all say, yeah, we got to have it, we're addicted to it, because technically your brain is saying that you're addicted to it. So another common thing that I hear is when folks stop eating dairy that comes from an animal, they are still saying, oh my gosh, my stomach hurts, or I felt depression or inflammation or other issues that you had while you were eating dairy. It's because your body is essentially going through withdrawal from it. It has to be detoxed out of your system. So once that period's over, I just tell everybody, just let it pass. It will pass, I promise. Those cravings are real, but they will pass. And then you'll get to a point where, like for me now, when I eat it or I smell it inadvertently, like if it happens to accidentally get cross-contaminated in something that I order, or which is really rare nowadays, but just in the event that may happen, your body is like, ugh, and I feel awful from it. So I know, I can always tell. But another reason that dairy coming from an animal is toxic to our health is because it actually causes a lot of inflammation. It causes all kinds of stomach issues. A lot of people that have chronic stomach issues, I tell them all the time, I'm like, just try cutting out that dairy, just give it a week and see how you feel. And they come back and they're like, oh my gosh, I feel so much better. And I know I just said that sometimes some people feel worse when they give it up initially. So regardless of that doesn't happen to everybody, and it's not that common per se. But the people that don't have a withdrawal from it, they feel amazing. And so they're like, oh my gosh, those stomach issues went away, and I'm not bloated, or I'm not as sluggish, I'm not as fatigued. And I know that was the one thing I had no idea about, the health components of dairy and what it was doing to my body. And when I was sick all the time, that was the one thing I didn't realize that made such a huge difference. And once it was out of my system, I just felt a world better. And so I can't speak to that enough. And I'm just a mild case of how much better you can feel. There for others that are dealing with a lot worse symptoms than I used to have. It was all because technically, yeah, we're all allergic in some way, shape, or form to animal dairy, because our body isn't meant to process it. Our body isn't meant to process those proteins and those growth hormones that are in there, and all of those additives that when we eat that affects our system. And so it leads to, and can lead to, issues and diseases and various cancers, things like that. So nasal congestion, if you have a lot of mucus all the time, which is yucky, but dairy can be something that is flaring up and causing all of that. So there's so much more info. I don't really want to go too much into the health side of things because obviously I'm not a medical doctor, but I've studied it and read extensively on it, and there are so many medical doctors out there that can provide all of that information. And one that I'm always talking about is Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine. They're up in DC, but if you go to pcrm.org, they are a fantastic resource for all of that. And another one is Dr. Michael Greger. He wrote the book How Not to Die, and he has a site called nutritionfacts.org, and that is, if you really want to get into the nitty-gritty of everything medical and science, then that's a fantastic resource on all subjects as well. Trying to think of one of my favorite medical doctors is Michael Clapper, and he says the human body has no more need for cow's milk than it does for dog's milk, horse's milk, or giraffe milk. So if you think about it, that makes all the sense in the world, because we wouldn't sit here and drink milk from a dog because that would be gross and odd. So if you think about it, just because we've been drinking milk from a cow, or we've been told that we're supposed to drink milk from a cow, doesn't necessarily mean it is good for us. And that's part of the thing when it comes to a lot of vegan myths and veganism in and of itself, is we've been told all our lives, right, that, or have been instructed that you need certain foods to get certain nutrients, one of them primarily being calcium. And so that honestly couldn't be further from the truth. And in terms of needing to drink cow's milk or animal's milk in order to get that calcium. In fact, calcium or cow's milk actually is very leaching to the body, because it is, when we eat animals, animal proteins are very acidic in our body. And so what it does is it goes in and it pulls it actually takes that calcium out of our bones. And so it really couldn't be further from the truth in terms of you need to have calcium in order to build up bone strength, because it just isn't true. And so there are a ton of other sources, wonderful sources, plant-based sources for calcium. And I just want to go over a couple of those, because I think that a lot of people don't even realize it. You can get a ton from your green leafy vegetables like spinach and kale, things like that. Broccoli is another great source. I love, which you may not know about this, but if you know what tahini is, it's actually ground up sesame seeds or sesame butter, and this is what is in hummus. So if you like hummus, which almost all of us do, you're already getting a nice dose of calcium in there too. Almonds are another great source of calcium. Tofu, I know, gets a bad rap, but this is actually, depending on how you cook it, I love to air fry it, which is a phenomenal. Tofu is fantastic for being a calcium source as well. It even says it all over the packaging. Another one is tempeh, which is fermented soybeans, and this is very meaty, meat-like, and you can just, in fact, this one's a smoky tempeh, and it's just like if you want to do barbecue meat strips, you can saute these up, but this is another fantastic source as well. So it's out there, and we're getting it in so many other ways naturally that we don't even, you're not missing out on getting that calcium intake by not ingesting it or consuming it from an animal. So let's get to the good stuff in terms of cheese, and going back to honoring and celebrating National Cheese Day, because we can still participate in that and love it, because now there are so many incredible vegan, plant-based, animal-free cheeses out there, and it's really a testament to how the market has changed and how the industry has shifted. Because on another note, one of the reasons, or the primary reason for me, in addition to health, but first and foremost, is the animal aspect of everything. And a lot of people think, well, you're not killing or, you know, slaughtering an animal in order to get cheese, right? And that's not true either. So in addition to what the mother cows have to endure, which is a constant forcibly being impregnated, because if they're not lactating, if they're not having babies, and they're not producing milk, right? So there's this constant cycle, and then that just, the toll that takes on their body is just, it's horrific. If you just Google spent dairy cow, you can get all of that right there in and of itself, which I encourage everyone to do, because a lot of people just don't even realize. And that includes, you know, cows or dairy that comes from labels that say, you know, humanely raised or certified organic, or different types of marketing labels like that. The treatment of the animals is still the same in order to get to the final product. So in addition to that, once the mother cows have their babies, if they're males, they're taken immediately, well, males or females, the females get put right back into the system, and then the males are taken, and they're part of the veal industry, in which after a couple months they're slaughtered for veal. And their short life leading up to that is horrific. So no matter which way you look at it, if we're consuming dairy from an animal, then we're contributing to this system that is just something that we don't have to contribute to, and the pain and suffering and everything that they endure, and having their babies taken away from them at birth. And I've witnessed it. I've seen it. It's not something I wish I could say that I'm, you know, fabricating or making it up. I wish more than anything that it was a lie, but unfortunately it's not. So I really encourage people to check out that aspect of everything too, just to know. And there's a great site too called humanemyth.org, and it really lays out, there's all kinds of former animal agriculture farmers that used to raise animals for food or dairy, and they now have changed, because they're seeing too the industry, in addition to, you know, the way that the animals are being treated, they're also recognizing a shift in what people are saying that they want. People want these plant-based cheeses. They want cruelty-free foods. So they are saying, you know what, hey, look, let's recognize this and let's transition. So now you're seeing, it's been major headlines over the last couple of years, last year especially, where farms or industries are taking their once dairy farming, animal dairy farming practice, and turning that into plant-based milks, because they're seeing the boom of what people are saying that they want. So it's definitely, there's so much more that can be discussed on that side of things, but like I said, to keep it so we can also talk about the good stuff. Let's get to that. So I've covered some of these cheeses and some of these things before in some of the other videos. So if you've seen any of those, you're going to recognize that. But just in a little bit more detail, I wanted to show you some in case you haven't actually purchased any yet or tried any yet. So one of the most popular, or if not the most popular one out there, is Miyoko's, and she makes, among so many other different kinds of things, but I think one of the most popular kinds is her cheese wheels, and she has, I think, 4, 5, 6 different flavors now at this point that are all amazing. And this one is the classic chive, which is like a brie, or it's creamy. It literally just looks like your classic cheese that you would put on a cheese platter. So I wanted to highlight that you can still do all that, and it looks the same, and it tastes the same, and the texture is the same. and it is great. So try that, and use that on crackers, use that on whatever you want, bagels, toast, anything you want, and you're gonna love it. So another one is the Daiya, the smoked Gouda. They're the blocks, and they also make a cheddar farmhouse one, I think a provolone, and these are phenomenal too. The smoked Gouda is the best. That's my personal favorite, and every time I have I do a wine and cheese night, that's everybody's go-to, as well as the Miyoko's. And actually, I'm fibbing a little, because the other one is the top three, I'd say, is the Kite Hill cream cheese, and they have a dairy or a chive flavor, and this is phenomenal. It spreads just like cream cheese. It's definitely more of a creamy, you can put on your cheese and cracker, or do your cheese and crackers, but it's also really, really awesome for bagels and breakfast items and things like that. Speaking of cream cheese, Miyoko's also has their plain cream cheese as well, which is fantastic. And with the plain, you can do so many things with this, because you can add chopped up fruit, and make a fruit spread, cream cheese spread. You can add it to, I add this to different pasta dishes that I'm doing to make kind of like a creamy Alfredo, and then my other ingredients and spices in there. So it works out really, really well for stuff like that. Same with the cheese wheels. Miyoko's also does a mozzarella, which is fantastic for lasagnas and pizza. It just is amazing and tastes the same, texture the same. Kite Hill also has a ricotta. You can make your own as well, but we all can use a little help sometimes with moving things along. So there's one already made, which is great. Kite Hill does also a French onion dip, and it tastes, I used to love eating French onion dip and potato chips, and like this tastes exactly like it. So it's scary how much it tastes just like it. So there's also vegan quesos, which Trader Joe's, has an awesome one, which is a fiesta dip. If you get to head up to Trader Joe's in Annapolis or DC anytime, definitely pick up some of that. The best cheese I get asked this all the time, for grilled cheese sandwiches is the field roast chow slices. They already come sliced up, and these melt, texture, taste, everything exactly the same, and cannot get enough. These are fantastic for grilling your Beyond Meat burgers as well, and everyone loves it. So let's see, there's a brand called Violife, and they make a just like feta, which literally is just like feta. And it is great for Greek salads, and crumbles up, tastes just like it. I make salads like that a lot for when family is coming to visit, and they're like, how's this feta? And I'm like, I know. So the Violife also makes a just like Parmesan, and it's just like a Parmesan. So I wanted to show you guys, you can literally take a block of this and just grate that over your favorite pasta, vegan pasta, of course. And look at how awesome that looks, and it tastes just the same. Speaking of, this pasta is already prepared. It's a creamy cashew carbonara. I don't know if you've seen it before, but it is so good. And it's vegan, of course, and this is found at the Good Earth. And I meant to tell you that all of these cheeses, except for the Trader Joe's one, all of this is at Good Earth. In fact, I was just there yesterday stocking up and picked up some more. So on that note too, Good Earth for the month of June, I know Kite Hill, Miyoko's, and Daiya is on sale at Good Earth. I think it's select flavors, it might not be all of them, but they're having a sale on at least those three. So make sure you take advantage of that. Speaking of the Daiya, I forgot about this too. They also do an awesome mozzarella shreds, and we use this for pizzas all the time, and it melts just tastes everything just the same. So grab that there as well. So I think I covered everything in that regard. And just to, since we're talking about dairy, I know this is about cheese primarily, but just remember that there's so many dairy-free alternatives out there that don't contain animal products that are phenomenal, and you're still getting all of your vitamins and nutrients, you're still getting all of your calcium. And oat milk, the dairy-free coffee creamers, which are wonderful. Who can live without ranch dressing? I can't. I have to have it on everything. So this is available. Miyoko's makes the butter, of course, as well. Tofutti has sour cream. Again, all this stuff at Good Earth, and locally, all the big box grocery stores, supermarkets, Targets, Walmarts. I know they all carry some form of all of this stuff as well locally. So I know I keep saying it, but there really is there's no issue with finding this stuff locally, no matter where you may be in the area or where you're able to get to. So trying to think if I forgot anything. I made a couple of little notes to the side because there is so much to cover, but I think that I covered mostly everything. There's so much more I could talk about with this. And of course, like I keep saying, you know, don't take my word for it. Go to the medical resources and sources, and go to these sites that I've talked about, and see for yourself and learn for yourself too, all about this. And it really is astonishing, but in a good way. And I think it will be impactful for you and for everyone that you know and can share with too, because it really does make a difference. And there's nothing better than feeling okay. And so I think in these times as well, we need all the help we can get. So let's be kind to ourselves, be kind to one another, be kind to the animals and the planet, and we can do this. So follow on the Southern Maryland Vegan Restaurant Week page as well. I'm always posting all kinds of stuff going on in the area, and for recipes, tips, and all kinds of other things. So thanks for watching, and see you soon.